and then we can progress with setting up the controls. I'm gonna start off by making very simple controls with my own little joystick. And we're later on going to remove that again and instead implement the tilt function control that we have in the original game. So what we have in the original game is that when you tilt the device, the plane bangs or dives accordingly. The only problem is if you're using an iPad 1, I don't believe that has tilt controls, tilt detectors. So if you're using an iPad 1, you probably do want to stick to the joystick approach I'm going to explain first now. So I'd like to go over the joystick approach first because it's the most common way of doing it. So what we should do, we can see we have done clear input zones. Input zones are things like buttons and joysticks and swipes and all those things. So zones where you can input something through touch. So what we want to do to begin with is make a new input zone. I'll move this out of the way a bit. So I can take this one, for example, and say I want to have a new action mobile. Add an input zone. You can add it behind it. And then in the properties of this, we can set the zone name. So you should have a unique name, no spaces, nothing weird. A very simple name, for example, joystick test. And we should create a new zone. So here we have new zone. We have a little blue arrow here. Click that and select the mobile input zone. Getting lots of options now. And this will allow us to set, first of all, to set what it is. So zone type, it's a joystick. I don't need any of this. Under bounds, we have the size and the location of it. That's also quite important. So we should say, okay, size, it's 100, 100 it says, but it's on X and Y 0. So that means all the way in the left top corner of the screen. That's not very good. So we should probably say it should be 400 down on the height and probably like 250 or something on X. We have to test this to see where it is. And we see we have a little joystick over here. It might be hard to see, but there's actually a little joystick here. So I'll try some different sizes, move it down a bit more. Increase the size also. I think we might even be able to set the color, I think, under rendering, yes. So I'll set it to an obvious color just to make it more obvious on the video. It is. Okay, so now we have a purple one over here. This is good enough to test with. Okay, so you can see we have a joystick, doesn't do anything though. So what we're now going to do is we're going to hook up this joystick to the plane. Make it a bit larger still. And to do that, we need to have a new event. Because the input zone we just made, we defined the zone, but now we need to make an event that captures the input from this zone and sends it somewhere else. So I right click, I do a new event, mobile, I think, or input, and then we have mobile, which one was it? Mobile input access, I believe it is. Okay, you can see I have several different types. So for example, if you want to have a button, you can use a button, etc. We'll get back to buttons later on. Actually, I'm sorry, I think it's look, not mobile input access, it's simply look. So a new event, input, mobile look. This is our joystick. We're going to have to hook this to the zone. So the name of the zone was joystick test. And here we can say target zone name, joystick test. So this is now linked to this zone. So anything that happens to this zone, this one will output. That's good. Okay. We can demonstrate this very simply by adding an action mystical log. So this is going to output it to the screen. I set the player as a target. And I'm going to right click log and do expose variable float. I'm going to add a float, new variable float. You can also hold the F key on the keyboard and click somewhere. And I'll hook up yaw with log. And if I were to play this, and move the joystick, you can see it's probably hard to see because it's on top of the bright rocks here, but you can see the number moving here. So as soon as you move the joystick, the number updates, and that's good. So we're going to use that to manipulate the location of the plane. And then we can do a new action, actor, set actor location. And we can say, okay, fine, we take the plane. And the plane is my target. Okay. I'm gonna have to add in some more in between. But the thing is, we want to use the yaw as the rotation of the plane, for example. We can't hook it up though. It doesn't work because this is a float. You can see it's blue, but this is a vector. You can see it's I don't really know what color it is, kind of yellowish something. But this color doesn't match. So what they expect here is a vector. They expect a vector. So there was a new variable vector. And that does hook up. But now we have to make sure we get this value over to this vector. So to do that, I can do, and I usually forget where this is located. Yes, mod set vector components. Okay, so I add this in between. Output vector, well, that's this one. Input vector, it's one of these. It doesn't really matter which one. I'm just doing this as a test right now. And now, if I were to play this and turn the joystick, my plane turns around. See? And since my camera is attached to the plane, my camera also turns around. So that's nice. You can also see as soon as I touched it though, the plane teleports to underground. And that's because I forgot to turn off set location. So therefore it teleports it to location 000. So now it should be better. Okay, so that works. And depending on which one you pick, obviously it's a different axis. Okay, so that's a very, very simple joystick. And we can use it, also do this by setting set velocity. So actor, new action, actor, set velocity. The target is again the mobile pawn. We hooked this up somewhere in one of the outputs. And we can say we have a float under strength, and velocity magnitude is strength. So the strength, how far we push in the joystick, is now hooked up to the magnitude, basically the speed of the pawn. We might need to set a velocity direction, not sure, it might work without. No, it probably wants to have this one. Let's try hooking up to the same one. And that works. You can see my plane actually moves very slowly, but it moves. It only moves in one direction because I hooked it up with this one, but it works. So what I did is I said set velocity. The strength is the same as the strength float goes into velocity magnitude, and we have a velocity direction. That's it. So now we're going to set up the real controls for the plane using the tilt function of the device. Again, if you're using an iPad 1, you want to continue like this, and it's going to be roughly the same idea, but you want to use joysticks rather than a tilt.